Complex machinations converge to a single act of power.
Hello, I am Surgeon General. In this video, I will be showcasing some new tech enabled by the Mercenaries in Path of Exile, which allow you to completely circumvent the downsides of two powerful unique items. They have excellent synergies when used together, allowing you to stack sources of gained as extra damage to achieve a 4 or 5 times multiplier to the base damage of physical spells. These uniques are Lightpoacher, a unique helmet that drops in Abyss content, and Disintegrator, a war staff that drops in the Uber Elder fight. These two uniques are actually quite similar. They both grant the player access to non-standard charges, a method to generate those charges, and then give the player a bonus in the form of extra base damage based on the number of charges the player currently has. However, they also have downsides in the form of opportunity costs needed to work around the unique mechanics, or in a straight-up detrimental effect imposed on the player. In this video, I will examine these two uniques individually, showing the benefits they grant and the downsides that you would normally need to worry about. I will then showcase the new tech which uses a hired mercenary to circumvent those downsides and demonstrate how to package the interaction into an autobomber build. Let's first look at Lightpoacher. This unique helmet has synergies with Abyss Jewels and encourages stacking as many on your character as possible. For each Abyss Jewel socketed anywhere in your equipment or on your passive tree, you are granted 1 maximum spirit charge. You then receive 5% of physical damage as extra damage of each element, lightning, cold, and fire, per spirit charge you have. This can be stacked very high to massively increase the base damage of a physical skill. By using other equipment such as Replica Shroud of the Lightless and picking up as many jewel sockets as possible on the passive tree, it's possible to get 10 to 15 spirit charges, giving you up to 75% of physical damage gained as extra damage of each of the elements. This alone would be more than a 3 times multiplier to your total base damage, spread out among the elements. That added damage has strong synergies with Disintegrator, a unique war staff. This is a complex item, so let's look at the relevant mods one by one. Similar to Lightpoacher, Disintegrator grants the character a new type of alternate charge, siphoning charges. The player's maximum number of siphoning charges is determined by the number of Shaper or Elder items they have equipped, with Disintegrator itself counting as 1. Those charges have a 25% chance to be generated when a skill is used and give the player's character several effects. First, Disintegrator adds an average of 15 physical damage to attacks and spells per siphoning charge. Additionally, Disintegrator grants Battle Mage, which adds the flat damage of our main hand weapon to our spells. Together with 5 siphoning charges and a decent roll on the added damage line, this adds about 400 flat physical damage to spells. Remember that the extra damage we receive from Lightpoacher is based on the physical damage of our spells. The additional base physical damage from Disintegrator is all multiplied up by the effects of our spirit charges, granting us even more elemental damage. The synergy between Lightpoacher and Disintegrator goes even one step further though. The final effect of our siphoning charges is to grant 4% of non-chaos damage as extra chaos damage per siphoning charge. This transforms all of our base physical damage plus all of the extra elemental damage from Lightpoacher into added chaos damage. Let's sum up the synergy between Lightpoacher and Disintegrator using an example. Assume you have a spell that deals 500 base physical damage on a character with 10 Abyss Jewels and 5 Elder items, giving you 10 spirit charges and 5 siphoning charges. You first get an additional 350 physical damage to spells via Battle Mage. You then get another 15 physical damage per siphoning charge for another 75 base physical damage, bringing our total base physical damage up to 925. The effects of our spirit charges then grant us 50% of this damage as extra damage of each element, giving us an additional 460 damage of each lightning, cold, and fire damage. Finally, our 5 siphoning charges then give us 20% of each type of damage as extra chaos damage. Our physical damage gives us 185 flat chaos damage, and each of the elements gives us an additional 92 flat chaos damage. Adding this all up, you can see how powerful the synergy is between Lightpoacher and Disintegrator. We've transformed our 500 base physical damage into a total of over 2,700 damage, spread out across all damage types. This is over a 5 times multiplier to our base damage. While the synergy between Lightpoacher and Disintegrator is very strong, there are some drawbacks that need to be overcome in order to enable the mechanics. Lightpoacher requires that you generate spirit charges on kill. This isn't a problem for mapping, but in boss arenas, you would need to fit in a writhing jar and sufficient charge generation in order to kill worms to generate and maintain the charges. The bigger problem with Lightpoacher is that whenever you use a skill, you will consume one of those spirit charges to trigger Spirit Burst, a projectile spell. This is generally undesirable since it wastes your spirit charges and reduces the amount of extra damage that you're gaining. Most players instead try to find ways to disable Spirit Burst by forcing their character to have insufficient mana or life to afford triggering it, thereby ensuring that they will always have maximum spirit charges. There are methods to do so on the wiki, but they require the player to either be very low life, or drain their mana to 0 and life tap all other abilities. This places an opportunity cost on the character that makes it more difficult to scale damage and defenses. The real issue, however, is in generating siphoning charges for Disintegrator. While you have a 25% chance to generate a siphoning charge on skill use, you also take a huge physical degen if you've used a skill in the past 4 seconds. In the past, the only real option was to tank this damage with physical damage reduction and offset the rest of it with regen. Prior to this league, it was impractical to try and make a build using this interaction. You needed to waste a flask spot for Writhing Jar, you needed to build flask generation to maintain it, you needed to spend jewel sockets and your mana or life pool to disable Spirit Burst, you needed generic physical damage reduction, and you taxed your life recovery due to the offset from the Disintegrator degen. This all goes without mentioning that it's hard to fit in that many Abyss Jewels and Elder items. I've been theory crafting builds around this interaction for a couple of years, but it's just never made sense. However, the introduction of Mercenaries this league changed the whole equation. There is a little-used Timeless Jewel keystone called Supreme Grandstanding, which is only available by transforming your passive tree with an elegant Hubris Jewel conquered by Victario. Supreme Grandstanding causes nearby allies to share charges with you. Sharing is one-directional and works for any kind of charge. Functionally, the way that it works is when your character has Supreme Grandstanding allocated, anytime an ally generates a charge, you will also gain one of those charges. This allows us to turn our Mercenary into a charge generation machine. We will give our Mercenary a copy of Hail Negator. This unique helmet passively generates 1 spirit charge per second, the same type of charge used by Lightpoacher. Since we have Supreme Grandstanding, this also passively creates spirit charges for us. Additionally, we will give our Mercenary their own copy of Disintegrator. This causes the Mercenary to have a 25% chance to generate a siphoning charge anytime they use a skill. Whenever that siphoning charge generation procs, we will also gain a siphoning charge for free. Again, thanks to Supreme Grandstanding. Yes, the Mercenary will take a physical degen due to Disintegrator, but we're not really worried about this. Remember that the physical degen scales with the number of siphoning charges. As long as we only give the Mercenary 1 Shaper or Elder item, the degen that they take won't be that big. This takes advantage of the fact that the Mercenary can generate infinite charges for us, but can only have 1 maximum charge himself. By allocating the charge mastery, which increases the duration of all charge types by 100%, we can extend the duration of our siphoning and spirit charges to last for 20 seconds. This is plenty of time to make sure that they will always be topped off. Using our Mercenary to generate charges and then share them to our character allows us to have maximum siphoning charges and spirit charges with no additional inputs required. Even more importantly, remember that the physical degen on Disintegrator, which damages our character, and the Spirit Burst trigger on Lightpoacher, which wastes our spirit charges, both proc on skill use. As long as our character never uses a skill, we will never activate these mechanics, and we don't need to worry about offsetting them as we have in previous leagues. We will get the benefits of Lightpoacher and Disintegrator without the downsides. The question is, how can we deal damage when we're never allowed to use a skill? Skill use has a very specific meaning in Path of Exile. It includes most actions in the game: attacking, casting spells, placing totems, war crying, throwing traps and mines, the list goes on. Almost every action in the game counts as using a skill, but there's one important exception. Triggering a skill does not count as using it. If one can design a character such that all of their abilities are triggered, they will be able to harness the power of Lightpoacher and Disintegrator synergy without needing to work around their downsides. Fortunately, there are several build archetypes in the game that already do this. Cast when stunned is a support gem that provides a high chance to trigger supported skills when the player is stunned or blocks a stunning hit. By using Valerium with a small energy shield pool, the player's stun threshold can be lowered to minuscule values, ensuring that nearly every hit taken will trigger your skills. Another approach would be to set up a self-damage loop and use cast when damage taken support to trigger all of your skills. You can achieve this by, for example, using Herald of Thunder and Storm Secrets to damage yourself, or setting up a minion death loop using Heartbound loop. The main issue with cast when damage taken is that it places a limit on the gem level of spells that you can trigger. To trigger high-level spells, you need to take a lot of damage, and since most skills get their flat damage from gem levels, this can make it very difficult to scale your damage into the end game. However, the Disintegrator and Lightpoacher synergy is great for overcoming this limitation. As shown previously, Disintegrator adds a lot of flat damage to your skills by itself with Battle Mage, and you can get more flat damage on all of the Abyss Jewels that you'll be stacking for Lightpoacher. This way, you can keep your spells at level 1, which will cause them to trigger more frequently, but they'll still have comparable flat damage to a high-level gem. These two triggering methods are certainly viable, but they place some strict gear requirements on a build which is already trying to stack Abyss and Elder items. It can be made to work, but it will be expensive to execute. There is, however, another method available to us as a way to deal damage without using a skill. Mercenaries League introduced a new skill gem, Bladefall of Trarthus. Unlike almost all other skills in the game, this spell is activated once and then continuously spends mana to cause daggers to fall from the sky around our character. To clarify, there is no duration on the skill. Once activated, it will continue forever, so long as we can afford its mana cost. We can turn on Bladefall of Trarthus at the beginning of a map and never have to use a skill again. This gem has terrible base damage, less than half of most other physical spells. Its design suggests that it was intended as more of a support skill to enable other spells like Blade Blast, or with use by mana stackers. However, by harnessing the power of Lightpoacher and Disintegrator, you can raise the base damage of the skill up to a level suitable for endgame mapping with great quality of life. I was able to use Bladefall of Trarthus with the Lightpoacher and Disintegrator interaction to make a 0-button autobomber elementalist on about a 15 to 20 divine budget. It's been fantastic for farming 8-mod tier 16 toxic sewer maps with Divination Scarabs of the Cloister. Since I never use a skill, I'm able to have permanent uptime on the phase run movement speed buff. With my flasks up, I have over 150% movement speed. Along with some ignite proliferation, it's a wonderfully zoomy build. The best part is that it's incredibly comfortable to play. All you have to do is turn on Bladefall at the beginning of the map and then run around collecting loot. All of the in-game footage you've seen in this video was taken using that build. I'll put a Path of Building link in the video description, but if you're interested in a full build guide, please subscribe to the channel. It'll be coming soon. I've been very excited to share this new Lightpoacher and Disintegrator tech with the community. These are two unique items that I've been wanting to build around for a long time, and Mercenary's finally opened up an opportunity to do so. I hope that this video has given you some ideas of tech that you can work into your own builds. If you enjoyed the video or are interested in more content of this type, or in-depth build guides with an emphasis on mechanics, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support.